This is Gemara and Beitzah Daf Gimel, all the learning for this month, the month of Elul, as we get closer to Rosh Hashanah, as we get into this new Masechta of Beitzah, has been generously sponsored to the Zecher Nishmas Hasarezel Basar Meir, the learning of the entire Chabura, which I believe is growing, Baruch Hashem, as we embark on a new Masechta, should be a tremendous chos ilu nishmasa. Of course, our Chaydim should have a correct refuah, men of a Beitzah Chaim, and such some Dim Reizel Bas Kanan Dir Basim Chaysa Yisrael Men Delay Tzad Shalom Trumas and Ami, Pasha Vigor Shechan Shmol until Dino Khan Vizul Chaim Yasil Brachos of Musa, at the end of Veshin and Mendes Viveng Veg Grior and the Chalit Sunas Eluver Rivka Sheva, Naftali Zim Mechlaster, Besod Shachali Israel, as well as the Chosher Vizachaim and Devaira, and Shir Miriam Bas Rizal Gittel. We are holding on the bottom of Beis Amid Beis. We started this fabulous Masechtas Beitzah yesterday. Yesterday we got knee deep into the first case in the Mishnah, two explanations of that case, explanation of Rav Nachman, the explanation of Rava. The two explanations are explanation of Rabbi, The two explanations are in the case of a Beitzah Shenolda B'Yantif. An egg is born in Yantif. What is the precise case? What is the mami? What is the hen? And what is the debate that Beis Shammai says you can eat it, Beis Hillel says you cannot eat it? One of the kulas of Beis Shammai and chumras of Beis Hillel. Said Rav Nachman, the case is that the hen is muksa. It's a hen, it's a mami chicken that is really set aside for eggs. No reason you're going to use it on Yantif. 100% muksa. So why does Beis Shammai let you eat it? You know why? Because Beis Shammai goes like Rav Shimon. Beis Shammai goes like Rav Shimon, holds is no muksa. And the chiddush and the novelty of our case is that he goes, not only is there no muksa, there is no nailad. Explanation number one in our Mishnah. Rabbi was not so happy with this explanation. The Gemara came along, and the Gemara, I should say, was not so happy, and therefore said the Gemara, Ella Amar Rabba. The reason why the Gemara is not so happy, let's just point out, because why did the Mishnah hone in and zero in on the egg? Why didn't the Mishnah say the exact same case of the chicken? It should have said a tarnagoyles and a beitzah that's born in Yantif. This is the case, and therefore the Gemara went for a second answer. Rabba came along, and Rabba said a new din. The case of the Mishnah, as you see highlighted now in front of you, about 20 lines up, is a tarnagoyles which is still for eating. And therefore, if it's a tarnagoyles, a hen that's made for eating, there should not be any issues. So why in our Mishnah is there a problem? Why does Beis Hillel say you cannot eat it? Again, if you're keeping track, in answer number one, the question was on Beis Shammai. In answer number two, the question is on Beis Hillel. And says, Rabbi, you know why? A new idea. The idea called Achana de Rabba. Because the pasuk says you have to prepare for Shabbos in Yantif, and if it's not prepared, but rather it's prepared on Shabbos for Yantif, the egg was formed on Shabbos and born on Sunday, that's a violation of Ayu Beichinu, B'Yom it's a violation of Achana. That is why Beis Hillel says you cannot eat this egg. The Gemara got involved in how far this gezerah goes. We're going to make a gezerah if the egg is born on Shabbos, if the egg is born on a random Yontif day, but there will not be a gezerah if the egg is found inside the hen after it is shechted. Comes along the Gemara, why? Because that's not a common case. Says the Gemara now, answer number 3. Rav Yosef Amar says, Rav Yosef, Beizim and Beiz, 2 lines to the bottom, gezerah misham peiros hanoishim. A new gezerah, says Rav Yosef. You know the reason why this egg cannot be consumed according to Beis Hillel? The reason is because it's similar to the case of fruit that falls off a tree on Yantif. Fruit that falls off a tree on Yantif is forbidden to be consumed. Therefore, so too a newly laid egg is the same thing that cannot be consumed on Yantif. What is the reason as we move over to Gimel Amud Aleph? What is the reason that when fruit falls off of a tree, you're not allowed to consume that fruit? You know why? It's a gezerah, everyone knows you might come to climb the tree. So if a fruit fell off a tree, we don't let you eat it. With the concern, we don't want you going to climb trees, which is forbidden on Yantif. Asks the Gemara, he gufa gezerah, so that itself is a degree. And we're going to make a new decree. Ask the Gemara on Rav Yosef, I don't understand. You, Rav Yosef, just extended a decree. There's decree number 1, don't eat fruit that falls off a tree. And you, Rav Yosef, came along and said, that's the reason Beis Hillel says you can't eat this egg that was born in Yantif because it's similar. That's too far removed. That's a gezerah like gezerah. You can't make decrees upon decrees. Answers the Gemara, a classic teretz, a teretz which is a bit difficult, always difficult how to apply. But answers the Gemara, Kula Chada Gezeri. It's all the same decree which forbids one to not eat the fruit is the same degree that forbids you to eat the egg because it's a type of fruit. It's almost the exact same case. And that is teretz number 3 of Rav Yosef explaining the debate Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. Case number 1, Beitzah Shenolda B'Yantif in our Mishnah. Teretz number 4. Rav Yitzchak Amar comes along, Rav Yitzchak, and he explains gezerah misham mashkin shezavu. A new decree. Says Rav Yitzchak, you know the reason why the egg that was laid in Yantif you're not allowed to eat is also din d'Rabbanan because it's similar to juice, mashkin, liquid, shezavu that flows from fruit on Yantif, which the Mishnah on Shabbos, Daf Kuf Mem Gimel, taught us that when you're not allowed to drink juice that comes out of fruit on Shabbos and Yantif. And therefore we make a decree onto the egg similar to the fruit. Of course, anyone that's listening carefully, these last two answers, Rav Yosef and Rav Yitzchak, are very, very similar. Rav Yosef made a decree, just like you can't eat the fruit that came from the tree, you can't eat the egg that came from the chicken. And Rav Yitzchak made the decree, just like you can't eat the liquid that comes out of fruit, on its own that seeps out of the fruit, so too, you cannot eat the egg that came from the chicken. Amar le Abayi. And those are, Amar le Abayi. Abayi now asks on the last teretz of Rav Yitzchak, Mashkin zavu taimamai, what is the reason for the liquid that seeps out of the fruit? You're not allowed to eat it. Gezeira shabi yischait. It's a decree that you might come to squeeze the fruit. We know you're not allowed to squeeze fruit. Didn't we discuss extensively when we learned to Beitzah Shabbos? You're not allowed to take a lemon and squeeze it into your tea. That is forbidden. What can you do if someone needs lemon in their tea? You squeeze the lemon onto sugar, and then, because that's called food, mashke aballa eichlin, you're allowed to squeeze onto food, you're allowed to squeeze it into your fish, similarly, and therefore you'd be allowed to afterwards mix it into your tea. The Chazon Ish disagrees, Mashna Bruas Mekel. But says the Gemara, when mashke shezav, when the liquid seeps forth, that is forbidden. Why? It's a gezerah. What's the gezerah? Afraid you're going to come to squeeze the lemons. You're going to come to squeeze oranges. Therefore, says the Gemara, Shemi yischati gufa gezerah. That itself is the decree. Vanan nekav and igzor gezerah. And the Gemara has the same answer, kulachad gzerihi. Therefore, it is, kulachad gzerihi, it's all one answer. And that is our four explanations in the Mishnah, Rav Nachman, Rabbi, Rav Yosef, and Rav Yitzchak. Four ways of explaining the Mishnah. Now the Gemara is going to come along, and the Gemara is going to start cross-referencing. Why doesn't A hold like B, B hold like C, C hold like D, Rav Nachman, Rabbi, Rav Yosef, Rav Yitzchak? Why doesn't anyone agree with each other? Says the Gemara, let's get to it. Kula ki Rav Nachman amri. Let's start with number one. What was Rav Nachman? That the chicken is muksa. The chicken, the hen, is set aside for eggs. And therefore it's muksa. What's the machlekes about noilad? Do we hold them muksa? Do we hold them noilad? Beis Shammai says, I don't hold them muksa, I don't hold them noilad. Everything is mutter. Beis Hillel says, I hold them muksa, I hold them noilad. Says the Gemara, why does no one hold like Rav Nachman? Ki koshen kirabba. Cause of Rabba's question. Ki kushyan. Cause of our question, like we explained already in the beginning of today's year, like we saw yesterday in Amud Beis. What was the question? Why did the Mishnah hone in on the case of the egg? The Mishnah should have said a case of the egg or the chicken, because it's the same machlekes. If it's a machlekes centering around the muksa, it should have said both. Ki kushyan. Ki Rabba nami lo amri. What's the reason why the other three opinions don't hold of love? Rabba. What was Rabba? Rabba was explaining number two. What was Rabbah learning? The reason why Beis Hillel says it's forbidden, even though it's a hen that's set aside for eating, is a new din of achana. I'm hoping as we keep on repeating again and again, the machlekes hopefully will seep in. That what is the machlekes? Says Rabbah, new din of achana. On the sixth day they prepared, and therefore if something is not prepared, but rather prepared on Shabbos itself for Yom Tov, is a problem. That's why Beis Hillel says it's an issue. The egg that is born on Sunday is an issue because it was formed on Shabbos. Explains the Gemara. Amri. They don't hold of Rabba's din. Rabba a new din of Achana. A new din that everything has to be prepared and set aside for Shabbos before Shabbos. They say, Rabba, where did you get that from? We totally disagree with you. So that is why Rav Nachman and Rabba, the other three opinions, don't hold like. El Rav Yosef. My time Rav Yitzchak. The last two opinions, we pointed out, they're very similar. Rav Yosef says the gezer because of fruit that falls off a tree. Rav Yitzchak says the gezer because of the liquid that seeps forth. Says the Gemara, why doesn't Rav Yosef hold of Rav Yitzchak? Amar Lecha. So Rav Yosef responds, Beitzah ochla, upeiros ochla. What is an egg? Food. What is fruit? Food. Lafu gemashkin delav ochla. Says Rav Yosef, it's more comparable an egg to fruit from a tree than an egg to liquid that came forth. Why? Because an egg is food and a fruit is food. They're both food entities. However, a liquid that comes forth is liquid. So says Rav Yosef, it's more comparable to fruit that comes off a tree. Says the Gemara, okay, what's the fourth? V'Rav Yitzchak. My time lamer Rav Yosef. Why doesn't Rav Yitzchak go with Rav Yosef? Why does Rav Yitzchak say it's exer because of the liquid? Why does he not say because of the fruit that falls from the tree? Rav Yitzchak responds, Beitzah belua. Umashkin beluin. Says Rav Yitzchak, there's a different entity of an egg. It's true, egg is food and fruit is food. But where did an egg come from? It's absorbed, it's swallowed up, it's inside the hen. So too, the liquid is absorbed in the fruit. Is the migli fruit which is revealed, v'kaimu, and they're sitting there, and therefore it's not comparable to the fruit. So far, number one, all four opinions, we know why at the first level they disagree with each other. Says the Gemara, Va'af Rav Yochanan Savar Gzeir Misha Mashkin Shezavu. Really says the Gemara, really says the Gemara, Rav Yochanan himself agrees to Rav Yitzchak. A bolster boosting Rav Yitzchak, opinion number 4, pointing out Rav Yochanan agrees. The Rav Yochanan Rav Yochanan asked the following contradiction. The Rav Yehuda, Umeshani Tanan. Rav Yochanan asked the contradiction between the opinion of Rav Yehuda, and he answered with a Mishnah. And of course, I read that incorrectly. Rav Yochanan Rami, Rav Yehuda, Umeshani, and he answered it. Now the Gemara is going to quote the two Rav Yehudas. What is the contradiction? What is Rav Yochanan's answer? And based off of that answer, we're going to see that Rav Yochanan concurs with the opinion of Rav Yitzchak, teretz number 4, in explaining our Mishnah, that the Gezerah was because of Mashkin Shazavu, liquid that seeped forth. That is why Beis Shammai holds that the Beitzah Shenel Deviyantav is forbidden in consumption. You're allowed to eat, whereas Beis Hillel says you're not allowed to eat it. To now we learned in the Mishnah, you're not allowed to squeeze fruits, mashkin, to extract their liquids. Let's say the liquids come out on their own. Everyone, I'm sure, at some level remembers this from the Gemara in Shabbos. Rav Yehuda, if it's fruit set aside for food, it's an apple that you plan on eating that you do not plan on using for the fruit, for the liquid, then the mashkin says of the liquid that seeps forth from something that's set aside as food is allowed. Rav Yehuda makes a middle level. Says Rav Yehuda, if the fruit is set aside for food, the liquid that comes out is okay. If the fruit is set aside for liquid, the liquid that comes out is not okay. Alma, what do we see? Food has the status of, according to Rav Yehuda, food that is separated. That when the fruit was set aside as food and liquid comes out, that separated entity, that separated liquid has the din of fruit, has the din of food, and therefore it is not forbidden. Vereminu, that's what it seems like Rav Yehuda's opinion is. Vereminu asked the Gemara 8 lines to the bottom, last contradiction. V'idam Rav Yehuda, this is a different din of Rav Yehuda. Masna adam al kilkolo shall pay beyond rishain. One is allowed to make a tenai condition on his basket of fruit on the first day of Yantiv, first 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, how time sensitive, and eat it on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. And similarly, Beitzah Shenal Barishon, an egg which is born on day number 1, Toichal B'Sheni, you'll have to eat on day number 2. End of quote. Explains the Gemara, B'Sheni in Barishon Lai. What does it sound like? You're only allowed to eat that egg on day number 2. You're not allowed to eat that egg on day number 1. What's the reason, according to Rav Yehuda, you're not allowed to eat that egg on day number 1? Seemingly, the reason is because he's going with the opinion of Beis Hillel that you're not allowed to eat the egg. 1 second, why not allowed to eat the egg? A moment ago, what did we just explain? That Rav Yehuda himself is of the opinion that it's ochla de'ifrasu, that when something separates, it still has the entity of food. That when the liquid of the apple that's set aside as fruit has liquid that comes out, it has the din of apple, and it's allowed. So 1 second, this egg that came out of my chicken, why is it not allowed? Why is he all of a sudden explaining like Beis Hillel? He should go with Beis Shammai, to put it in other words. So why we have a contradiction in Rav Yehuda? Sidebar. How do we answer? How does Rav Yochanan answer? Umeshani, Rav Yochanan, 2 lines from the bottom. Muchlefes Ashita. Switch the first Mishnah. In the Mishnah that discusses the fruit that comes out, you have to switch it up. And the one that is machmir is Rav Yehuda. And then it makes a lot of sense. And that's the same reason why. In the second Mishnah, Rav Yehuda is going to hold that the Beitzah Shenol Deviyantav, you're not allowed to eat on the first day. What do we see? The Rav Yehuda is holding, the reason is he does not hold of Ochla De'ifris. Rather, what does Rav Yehuda hold? Rav Yehuda holds that all liquids that come out are a problem. Let's just look up for a moment and highlight it. That when the Beitzah said, in Mishnah said, in Seichlan Zapiris, Lahaitzi men mashkin, V'myotze me asmen oisrin, that now is the opinion of Rav Yehuda. Because we're switching the shitas. Why would Rav Yehuda say it's categorically forbidden? Because of mashkin shazavu. Because the liquid that's eat forth is going to be gezerah, it's forbidden. Similarly, b'sheni in barishon lai, that the egg day number 1 is going to be forbidden. Why? For the same gezerah. So Rav Yochanan concurs with the opinion of Rav Yitzchak. Beautiful Rav Yitzchak Azariah. Says the Gemara, now the Gemara speaks this out. And from the fact that he asked them as a contradiction, Shema mino chatai Daimu must be that both of these Mishnayos, this is what I just spoke out, the Mishnah of squeezing the fruit, the Mishnah of egg that born in Yantif, must be that it's essentially at their core have the same reason. And what's that reason going to be? The reason is going to be the Gezerah of Mashke Shezavu, that is the Raya that Rav Yochanan concurs with the opinion of Rav Yitzchak. Beautiful. Says the Gemara now, once we're on this tangent, rectifying these two Mishnayos, rectifying the opinion of Rav Yehuda. On one hand, Rav Yehuda holds that Beitzah Shenol the B'yantav is Aser on day number 1, it's Mutter on day number 2. On the other hand, there was a Mishnah about Mashkin Shezavu that seemingly Rav Yehuda was Makel, but we switched it up for him to be Machmir. That was the first way of learning. Why would Rav Yehuda be Machmir on the liquid that comes out? Because Rav Yehuda is going with the opinion of Rav Yitzchak. Rav Yochanan explaining Rav Yehuda like Rav Yitzchak. That is a gezerah of Mashke Shezavu. Ravina Amar comes along. Ravina says, no, I have a different answer. We're going to have two other answers how to rectify the stira in Rav Yehuda. Ravina Amar Leilam Leitebach. Don't switch around the opinions. Rav Yehuda Ledevrei and Dirabanan Kamerlu. A classic answer. The Rav Yehuda is not saying his own opinion. Rav Yehuda, when he seemingly split up the different, Rav Yehuda, when he seemingly spoke about the egg, he's not saying his own opinion, he's talking back to the Rabbanan. Lididi says Rav Yehuda, Filu Berisha Misharya. I really hold there's no issue. That really the egg is always mutter. Why? Because I, Rav Yehuda, hold, like I said in the first Beitzah, that Ochla Difrasu, that anything that separates as din of Eichel, that therefore that's why when I have an apple set aside for food, the liquid that comes out is allowed. I don't hold of the Gezerah of Mashke Shezavu. And therefore, I really hold that the egg born even on day number 1 is mutter and day number 2. Dochla Difrasu, explains the Gemara. Ela Ledezchu, Rav Yehuda is talking back to the Rabbanan. According to you, Adelemias the B'Sheni Sharia, the Shtei Kedusha Sein. Ask Rav Yehuda, you should at least admit to me that on day number 2 it's mutter. Fine, you want to argue in day number 1 and you want to say it's forbidden. But in day number 2 it should be mutter, the Shtei Kedusha Sei, because Rosh Hashanah is 2 days. 2 different Kedushais, V'amila Rabbanan, and the Rabbanan respond, Loi, Kedusha Achasi, famous line, Machlekes Gemara Shana, how beautifully time sensitive, as we're a few days before the Yom HaKadosh, Rosh Hashanah, the Machlekes that the Rabbanan are responding, it's Kedusha Achas, Rav Yehuda was saying Shtei Kedushais. But the Gemara is answering that we can answer up the stira and Rav Yehuda very simply. We don't have to make drastic changes in the Mishnah. We can say that Rav Yehuda is just talking back to the Rabbanan. Teretz of Ravina. Teretz number 2 had to rectify the contradiction Rav Yehuda. Ravina braid Rav Ula Amar. Really, it's a totally different case. It's an egg, chicken that's set aside for their eggs, and therefore it should be a problem. Rav Yehuda l'tamei dislei muksa, and Rav Yehuda holds a muksa. And therefore, there's no contradiction in the first case. And that is the end of proving that Rav Yochanan holds of Rav Yitzchak, according to the first answer of the Gemara, which is Rav Yochanan, the way he explained to Rav Yehuda, that the Gezerah, the reason why a Beitzah Shenol the B'yantav is forbidden, because of the Gezerah Mashke Shezavu, the liquid that comes out of fruit, just like the liquid is forbidden, we're afraid you're going to come to squeeze the fruit, so to Beitzah Shenol is also going to be forbidden. That was Rav Yitzchak, the fourth explanation of the Mishnah. Rav Yochanan concurs with Rav Yitzchak. Meisvei says, the Gemara, about 8 lines down, we're now going to have a Beitzah. And from this Beitzah, we're going to have to go through all 4 explanations in the Mishnah and seeing if it fits. Meisvei asks the Gemara, Echad Beitzah Shenol b'Shabbos, Echad Beitzah Shenol b'Yantif. Whether we have an egg born on Shabbos or Yantif, ein mital t'nasa, you're not allowed to move that egg. Lo lekasas basakli, not to cover a utensil with it. Lo lesbon carry a mita, and not to support a leg of a bed with it. How you could do that with an egg? It's not going to crack. But you could use the egg to support your bed. Avol, what do you do with that egg that was born on Shabbos and Yantif? Koifel as I kli b'shel shlot tishaver. Take a bowl or take a cup, put on top of the egg, so that the egg does not break. Says the Beitzah usveika, and if you're not sure, what explains Rashi? If you're not sure whether the egg was born on Yantif or not born but late, whether the egg was late on Yantif or not, Asura, the egg is going to be forbidden. Ve'im this arva, and if this egg gets mixed with other eggs, be'elef, even with 1,000 other eggs, kulan asurais, they're all forbidden. So we have a Beitzah. The Beitzah says part number 1, an egg that's born in Shabbos and Yantif, don't touch it, don't move it, you're not allowed to do anything with it, just cover it up and leave it. Number 2, if it's a suffix when it's born, it's forbidden. Number 3, if it gets mixed together, it is forbidden. That is a Beitzah. Now we're going to have to figure out, does this Beitzah work with all the different opinions That we just quoted learning our Mishnah, Rav Nachman, Rabba, Rav Yosef, and Rav Yitzchak. Bishlam Rabba, opinion number 2. What was Rabba? Rabba said that what's the whole din of the Mishnah? Why does Beitzah say it's forbidden? It's because when was the egg prepared the day before on Shabbos? In the case of Shabbos after Yontif, Yontif after Shabbos, or it's a Gezerah if Yontif's on a weekday, or it's a Gezerah if it's born on Shabbos. What was the whole impetus of the din of Rabba? Was Achana de Rabba, pasuk that he learned from the Torah b'yoyim hashishechinu. In deraisa. So according to Rabba, it's very good. Have sveika deraisa. V'choseka deraisa l'chomra. I understand that in the case of this price that says sveika asura, if you're not sure, it's forbidden because there's something on a biblical din, a something deraisa. Of course, we have to be stringent. Elo l'Rav Yosef u'Rav Yitzchak. The last two answers. What did they say? They said it's a din derabanan, like we pointed out. It's a din derabanan either gezerah because of fruit that falls off a tree, or it's a din derabanan gezerah of liquid that came out of fruit. Says the Gemara, Damri Misham gezerah. Sveika d'Rabbanan ivachol sveika d'Rabbanan lekula. So what is going on in this price such a be lekula? Answers the Gemara, Amar le Seifa Asya Nisafik Treifa. The Seifa of that price is not talking about a regular chicken, it's talking about a chicken that might have been a treifa, and therefore that's a din daraisa. Might be a forbidden entity on a daraisa level because of a treifa. The chicken was want to die before the shechita, and that's the reason why, says the Gemara. Not before the shechita, it might die. It might die on its own. It might have the category of a treifa, might be dying, and therefore that's the reason why it's forbidden, because it's a suffix treifa, suffix daraisa. Says the Gemara 1 second. What was the last case? If this egg gets mixed with 1,000 other eggs, everything is forbidden. If the cases we're not sure whether this egg was laying on Yantif or not, another fascinating rule. These are all tremendous sugyos. If you're not sure when it's born, it's something called Safik Sheish Lamatirin. We're not sure, and therefore it's a Davar Sheish Lamatirin. What does that mean? Something that's going to come permitted. Right now, we're not sure what it is. What's it going to be tomorrow? Tomorrow, after Yontif, of course, it's going to be allowed. The whole reason this egg might be a problem, because it might have been born in Yontif. It might have been born before Yontif. That's called Davar Sheish Lamatirin. Something that today is a problem, but tomorrow, when Yontif ends, it's going to be no problem. What is the rule whenever I have something that's Davar Sheish Lamatirin? V'chol Davar Sheish Lamatirin, something that has a heter, something that will become mutter on its own. Afilu elf loy batal. Now I understand that the price has said that it's not even batal in 1,000. Eliyam, like you just explained, it's suffix treifa. You wanted to answer up that it's a suffix treifa, that's a din daraisa, and it might have been a treifa. But then davar she'ein loy matirin hi. What's the status of a treifa? Something that's never going to be mutter. So I have a doubt that's going to always remain a doubt. It's true, it's daraisa, but it's always going to remain a doubt. What's the din of something that's a suffix on a daraisa that will forever be a doubt? The din is whenever we have a suffix on a daraisa biblical level, it's batal b'raif. Certainly, if in 1,000 it should be batal. Question of the Gemara. Maybe you'll suggest an answer. Beitzah chashuva, an egg is an entity which is chashuv, that's important. V'loy batla, and the rule is anything which has a chashivas as an important is not batal. Ha-nicha, that only works l'man damer, according to the opinion that holds anything which is supposed to be anything which is typically counted and sold as its own entity. Shaninu, only that, excuse me, one more time. We taught that any item which is normally counted does not become batal. But there's mandamar that are used. The Gemara is about to quote this Mishnah in one moment, which will make it clearer. But according to the mandamar that says, even items which are only counted, as we're going to see in one moment, it's a machlokes, what is called chashiv. Something which is chashiv, quote unquote, we have to see what that means, does not become batal. Now, what does that mean? What does it mean, chashivos? Says the Gemara, it's a machlokes what that means. According to one mandamar, it means only something which is sold and counted. Meaning, it's sold as an entity. I sell one item, that's the chashivos. Is an egg something that's sold as one entity? Of course not. Therefore, is a chashiv? Of course not. Therefore, should be batal? Yes. That's the Gemara's question. According to the other mandamar that says something that's sometimes counted, but still sold as a unit, could be so-called chashiv, then I understand. Says the Gemara, let's explain. The Tanan, and with this we're going to conclude. We learned in the Mishnah, something that has bundles of talsin, which is fenugreek. Shel kalaya karen, of kalayim in the vineyard, yidlaku, you have to burn it. Nisarvu ba'acheirais. If it became mixed with other entities, and it keeps getting mixed and mixed and mixed, cool and cool, everything has to be destroyed. If you're a mayor, says the Chachamim, no, you can nullify it with 201. Explains the Gemara. Rameir that says it's always going to have to be burnt, it will never be batal. Says Rameir, since these bundles are entities which are counted and sold as individual units, they're sold as one bundle, therefore it's never batal. Therefore Mekadesh, it makes everything sanctified, which is a word that means in the world of Klayim, it's always forbidden. But the Chachamim that say it will be batal, Eina Mekadesh, Ella Shisha Dvarim Bilvad. The Chacham disagree. Chacham said there's only 6 entities that will never be batal. Rav Kiva Omer Shiva, there are 7 entities. What are these entities? V'Elohein. What are these 6 or 7 entities? Aguzei Perach not, Rimane Ba'adan, certain type of Ba'adan pomegranates, V'Chaviyah Stumois, and cold and closed, casks of wine, V'Chalfei Tradin, the Chavei Dradin, prickly beet, the Kilchei Krov, and some sort of cabbage, and Tulas Yavanis, and Greek gourd, and Rav Akiva adds on a 7th, Moisav Avki Karsha Balabais, even loaves of a Balabais, Arui Arla, Arui Klai Karen. Ve'itmar Allah. So that was the basic machlokes, whether it's what's called chashiv, and what this will conclude. Rav Yochanan Amar shedarka limanoi shaninu, v'ishlimim ben Lakish Amar kol shedarka limanoi shaninu. A subtle difference in Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Says Rav Yochanan, what did Rameir mean? Rameir meant only items which are only counted and sold on their own. Says Rish Lakish, no. Rameir meant an item which is normally counted and sold on its own. Very big difference. Egg is something which is not exclusively sold on its own. And therefore says the Gemara, back to the question, Rish Lakish, that there's nothing wrong that the egg could be bottled. El Rav Yochanan, that the egg will not be bottled. El Rav Yochanan, Michael Meimar, Amar Papa, Haitana Tana de Litra Ketsiyasu. This is the Tana of Litra Ketsiyas, the Amar Kol Davar Shebeminyan, Afilu Bidrabanan Loi Batal, Vekol Shekain Bidarai. So lowering the threshold, Kol Davar Shebeminyan, anything which is counted, anything which is even sometimes sold on its own is never going to be batal. And certainly in our case, which we're discussing a din daraisa, because again we're discussing the case of the treifa egg, will not be batal. Of course, this last Gemara was a little bit difficult. Lots of concepts. Davar shebeminyan, something that shebeminay batal. What's called chashiv. Tomorrow we'll do a quick recap of this last Gemara. I'll pick up from here, even though I know we're a little bit in the middle of the Tanah. The Gemara is going to prove this last point. This is going to go further and further. We'll pick up and Mirza Shem.